So it's a fairly informal talk. A lot of the information is new and evolving and everything else. This is a derivative of the talk Carl gave Wednesday night as part of our Chamber Day festivities. And again, pretty informal. When we go, and in fact, let me do it now. When we go full screen here and we go to the PowerPoint, and hopefully this all works the way I think it's going to work. And then I go slideshow, start. There we go. What you will notice, and I'm just so you guys know, I'm full screen now, so I can't see you guys or see any notes, so the chat thing won't work. But you've got an option up at the top. If you move your cursor, you'll see a thing that says View Options, one of which is side by side. So if you think the thing is too big, if you do side by side, you'll see a bunch of the little icons down the side. So however you want to do it. But let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling here, since we are under a time constraint. And so the whole idea of this is diving questions in the age of COVID-19. And again, as I said, derived originally from a talk that Carl gave Wednesday night as part of Chamber Day. And now here's my leap of faith to hope that, there we go, it's all going to work. Lots of questions. You are not going to get definitive answers tonight. Hopefully we can pose the questions. And one of the reasons we don't really have answers is because a lot of this is just so new and the information is so evolving that, you know, what we believed a month ago may not be true. Like I just saw a thing, I think on CNN, that there's 100 cases of young kids in New York, where before we've been saying, gee, kids aren't going to be affected. So like I said, the information and what we know and don't know evolves. So what we'll try to talk about tonight, and my goal is to wrap this up by about 7:30 at the latest, and that'll leave us about 10 minutes for Q&A if we have any. Diving after you've been infected. What are we doing with regulators, wetsuits, other gear? What are we doing about local boat diving? What if you're teaching? I don't think I really did much on that. And what if you want to travel? So let's start though, just to give you perspective, with today's numbers. And these are the actual updated numbers. Worldwide, 4.3 million infected, close to 300,000 dead. That's a 6.7 fatality rate. Not going to really get into the politics of, gee, do we really have all the infected numbers? Are we undercounting dead? These are the numbers come out of, there's a place that's called worldometer.info. So worldometer.info. And then you click on their top link and it says coronavirus numbers. That's where these come from. It's a pretty good compilation, and you get worldwide numbers, country numbers, and state numbers, and they update it. It's updated all the time. So that's where we are worldwide. In the United States, 1.4 million people infected, 83,000 deaths. That's as of today. 5.9% fatality rate, a little bit better than worldwide. California, 71,000 basically infected, almost 2,900 dead, 4.1% rate. If you did not hear Barbara Ferraro, who's the LA County medical public health official, said today, partly because LA is a hotspot. LA accounts for, I think, a little more than half of these death numbers. They're extending most of the stay-at-home orders, and they're lifting some of the restrictions, but it's now going through probably as much as end of July. So the thing to understand, this is politically neutral. Doesn't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever. It is highly contagious. It is highly infectious. So in other words, it's easy to pass it on. It's easy to get sick if you get it. And a lot of it goes through touch transmission. So that affects us in diving because we are naturally touching our gear. We're touching each other. Hands are the big thing, as you will see it at the end. And so, you know, I will start with wash your hands as much as you can. That alone is probably the single best thing that you can do. It's a slide that Carl had up for Wednesday night without going through it in too much detail. This is sort of what the inside of your lungs are looking like and where the gas exchange is taking place. I don't know if you can see my cursor going, but right up in here, the wonderful I can never remember if it's alveoli or alveoli, but the alveolus. But this is where the gas exchange is taking place. Picking up O2 into the bloodstream, getting rid of the CO2. That's what the healthy lung looks like. As we move down to the little below the middle, if you have a moderate infection, you've got some fluid in there, that is going to diminish the ability of your lungs to do the O2 and CO2 exchange. And if it's really severe, now you're going to have a lot of fluid in the alveolus area. There's going to be almost no or very little gas exchange going on. One thing they measure when they're looking at this is your pulse oximeter, with a pulse oximeter on your finger. And the number you want is like 92, 94 or above percentage. And they're seeing people walk in with, like, they say 50 or 60%. It's like they should be dead, but it's very, very limited oxygen flow. So you really, this is the way this thing is attacking the lungs. It has been called a lung-eating disease, as well as one thing, and boy, this gets your attention. Your lungs basically turn to cement. The immune response, you can see through the charts there. And if anybody wants a copy of this, just email me later on. I'm happy to send it out to you. But basically, you can see how the immune response goes, and it goes. You start to get fluid in the lungs. The fluid is now going to permeate through the lungs. You're going to get all kinds of infections. You're going to start destroying cells. And on the left side of this little box, it's stay at home at the top. You're hospitalized in the middle. You're in intensive care at the bottom. And, the lower down on this chart you go, the less likely it is you're going to be making it out. So you want to avoid this as best you can. Dealing with gear is an issue, obviously, for us. So there are a number of things out. I don't know how well you can see, but I've been consulting things. There's a Dan, a quick guide to properly disinfecting dive gear, and even that was updated. One of the things that we've talked about using, and I think we use at the aquarium in the Pacific when we're doing our gear, is the stuff stearamine. And Dan put out April 24th just a note about the stearamine is not on what's called the EPA List N. And List N is sort of the approved disinfectants for various stuff. It doesn't mean it's not effective. It just means it's not on that list at this part. So if you are you own a dive operation or something like that, I don't know what the legal ramifications are of using something not on the approved list. Regulators, though, are going to be tough because one of the things with breaking up this virus is you want not only to have the disinfectant, but you want to have some mechanical action as well. Because part of the idea of washing your hands and doing that soap and water is that the friction is now breaking the envelope off of the virus, and that's what helps disable the virus, if you will. And some of the, a lot of these disinfectants may be able to do that, the stronger ones. One of the things that we talk about using a lot of times is a 1% bleach solution. One of the things that the Dan article is pointing out with regulators, so you're breathing on a regulator and you inhale and you're exhaling. Well, you've got some internal levers and stuff that are going to be hard to get to if you just like are rinsing things. So a good soak on the EPA list, they have a number of disinfectants listed, and they have the recommended minimum time. And generally it's around 10 minutes. Some are as little as 3, a couple are as much as 30. But generally it's around 10 minutes. But anytime you can be shaking stuff around in a rinse bin, and obviously changing the rinse water regularly, or if you're just rinsing your own stuff, that's going to be a good thing. Wetsuit's sort of the same thing. I had a note. I can't tell if she's on the call or not, but from Tina Kennedy over at Catalina Diver Supply this morning. She said, "What do you think about wetsuits?" So the same thing with, I would tend to think, not a doctor, played one on TV, but not an epidemiologist. The thing with the wetsuits would be, we soak them a lot of times. Again, any mechanical action you can put to it is going to be good, whether that's rubbing the wetsuit, just dunking it up and down, up and down, up and down. The more mechanical action you can get, I think the better off we're going to be. Soap and water is okay. 1% bleach is going to be better. And again, the stearamine comes as a tablet. You can probably use that in the in it as well. I know a lot of people use Sink the Stink. I don't know how antibacterial that is. It, I think, is antifungal, but you'd have to read the warning label, read the labels about that. BC's sort of, you're in the same boat as you are with regulators. The main area to worry about, I would think, is the inflator. And if you have an Air 2 or something like that on there, that is now a second regulator for the most part. So again, as with the regulators, mechanical action is going to be a good thing. Anytime you can put, whether soak it in styrene, the soak and shake it around, you're generally going to be good stuff. Other gear, masks, you might want to use just some of the antiseptic wipes, Lysol wipes, stuff like that, to wipe out the inside of the mask. Some of this is not as much of an issue if you're just using your own gear. But if you're either borrowing someone else's gear, or you have, I think it comes up there, yep, rental gear, you know, you can ask them, what are they doing to sterilize stuff? If, again, you are a commercial operator, dive shop, dive boat, and you are renting out gear, the more you can soak stuff, the better. One of the issues we're having with the dive program at the aquarium we've been talking about is we have obviously many people that use the same regulator over the course of a day. So how are we gonna deal with that? And again, the more you can isolate in terms of the fewer number of people that can use a given piece of gear, the better off you're going to be. The more either washing, rinsing, disinfecting you can do in between, the better off you're going to be. Excuse me. How about local diving? This is going to be interesting. So if we want to observe social distancing, and you want to try to keep 6 feet between you and the next diver, you know, on some boats that's going to be really hard to do, and at some point it's do the best you can. But I think what you're going to see is the days of 35 people on the larger boats, that's going to be gone for a while, because if we want to maintain some level of distancing on the boats, there's just absolutely no way you can do that. Originally I was going to put masks, and I said every time I do masks, we're thinking of these masks, but some sort of a face covering. Should you be wearing a face covering? It certainly can't hurt, and especially on a boat where you're going to be in close contact with people, or, you know, relatively close to people. You know, again, the thing to remember about the face covering is it's sort of for you, but it's probably more for other people as well. If you are asymptomatic, and we do know that asymptomatic people can transmit the virus, certainly unintentionally, this will certainly help. I think the guidelines now are, obviously, if you're going into a retail establishment, wear a mask. If you're outside by yourself, you don't need to wear a mask. But if you're going to be near other people, 6-10 feet or thereabouts, and there are some people saying now that cough, or sneeze, whatever, the droplets can go more than 6 feet. The idea of 6 feet was that was sort of the distance that they thought the infectious distance if you sneezed or coughed or something like that. Now that some people are saying 10-12 feet might be appropriate. More is certainly better. So the point is, with the face covering, that will contain anything that you should cough or sneeze or whatever, as well as may protect you from other people coming in. What do you do at the gate? You're probably not going to be able to social distance too much at the gate, especially if you're trying to observe the buddy system. All the way some of people dive with the buddy system. You know, 6 feet will be amazing. But the reality is, do the best you can. I mean, at that point, when you're at the gate getting ready to go, you're not going to have a face covering on. You might be doing a buddy check with your buddy, so there will be some hands-on touching, although maybe you'll have gloves on, neoprene gloves or something like that. Again, common sense and do the best you can. One thing I would say is, if you're on a boat, the idea of getting to the gate and that's where you're doing all your final adjusting, it'd be better if that is taking place away from there. So when you and your buddy, if you're diving with a buddy, are ready to move, get to the gate, check out with the dive master, boom, boom, make that as quick as you possibly can. In the water, there's nothing I've seen that, and again, I'm not saying I'm the end all be all with this, but there's nothing I've seen that suggests we can transmit this, you know, underwater, certainly. Now, whether you can transmit it, you know, spray droplets across the top of the water, not sure. But underwater should not be an issue. So underwater, you can stay close together, you can be in contact with each other, should not be an issue. However, once you come back to the boat, end of the dive, and you are now going to be reboarding the boat, you're sort of in the same situation as you were when we were at the gate. So again, do the best you can. You can certainly help your buddy with fins and stuff like that, or you can get some help from a crew person. I mean, one issue the boats are going to have to decide is, are they going to have, is their crew going to be wearing face covering? Their crew going to be wearing gloves? I mean, the thing to remember about gloves, when I say gloves, I'm talking rubber gloves, not so much diving gloves. But the thing to remember about gloves is, in theory, you're getting virus, if it's out there, all over the glove. So the glove is probably an awful thing. At some point, you want to strip them off and change them. I know when I'm going out, like even to the supermarket, I'll wear a pair of gloves there, and I'm reminding myself, touching this, touching that. And then when I get to the checkout, well, my pocket, that's still sort of a clean area. So I actually take off my gloves. So now my clean hand that's in the glove goes in the pocket to pull out my credit card, slip it into the machine. I can use my gloved hand to punch anything in I need to punch in and go. And so you need to be thinking that way too, as to where are my hands going? Where have my hands been? What have I touched? What haven't I touched? And again, the more you can wash, hand sanitize, everything else, the better off you're going to be. As I mentioned earlier, LA County has extended the stay-at-home orders, again, with some of the modifications. I have here until July. I think it's actually through July right now. I think Dr. Farrar said another 3 months. It's set to expire on Friday, May 15th. So we're going for a little while longer. Now, they may be fine. She kept using the phrase most likely. So it certainly is wiggle room that as we can get, and all of these things we're talking about here help us get it better under control, that as we get things under control, maybe we can cut back on this. But for right now, this is going to be there for a while. And given the problems that we're going to have with these issues that you see on the screen on a dive boat specifically, it's not as much an issue if you're shore diving, but on a dive boat specifically, and given that they are a business, whether or not they're going to be scrutinized more as they operate or not, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. If you are traveling, I think yikes pretty much sums it all up. Lots of questions going on. We had at Reef Seekers 2 trips that we have canceled. One, well, actually 3 trips. One was going to be the Yap. And by the way, I had a note from Bill Acker at Manta Ray Bay just now. Yap is, as far as I know, the only place in the world that does not have a single occurrence of COVID-19. They locked down the country, Federated States of Micronesia, locked themselves down pretty quick, and they have not had any visitors in for the last couple of months. So killing his business, obviously, but at least they're not overwhelming the medical system there. We had to cancel a trip to Indonesia, and we postponed our trip to Bonaire. I would say our trip to Isla Mujeres, which now is set for August 1st, questionable probably. So we'll see what's what. But foreign travel is tricky. This is going to be the big thing. Will countries that you're flying into require a 14-day quarantine once you arrive in the country before they want you to be walking around? If they do that, pretty much, I think, kills travel, unless you can do like a 3-week trip, because you may find there's a 14-day quarantine on the other end when you come back to the United States. So that's something that, as countries open themselves up to visitors and tourism again, that's going to be a big thing. And it really will be the medical science over the economics, because I think any country that's imposing the 14-day quarantines, you're pretty much going to kill your tourism travel, but it may be the most prudent thing to do from just a medical scientific standpoint. So we shall see how that goes. If you're booking trips, check into refundability. What's cancellation policy? Can I get my money back from the resort? Can I get my money back from the airline? For the most part, the airlines are pretty much refunding. There is a thing in the American Airline Code. If an American airline or foreign airlines that do business out of American airports, if they cancel or significantly delay and change your trip, they have to give you a refund. They can't just give you a travel credit. So fight for that. Now, dive boats, some resorts, whole different ballgame. They are, for the most part, trying to issue credits and saying, you know, you can rebook. And I get it. The reason they're doing that, it's a cash intensive type business. My concern is just, okay, keeping the money now. In 6 months, when everybody's rebooking on vouchers, that's when you're not going to have any money coming in. So at some point, there's going to be an absence of cash flow to these places. Do the best you can to find out if they're going to be solvent by the time you're going to get there. I would strongly advise travel insurance. There's a place called insuremytrip.com. That's sort of an insurance marketplace. We deal a lot with CSA Travel Protection down in San Diego, csatravel.com. I don't get a commission on it, so you just book it directly or anything like that. But really look into travel insurance and look into their policies about force majeure in terms of COVID or anything COVID related, and make sure that they don't have enough restrictions in there that you get your trip canceled because of this, and they say, well, you know, it doesn't pay off. You're going to face all the issues we just talked about with local diving in terms of getting on and off boats and stuff like that. So the same things. New problems are going to be, what are we going to do about buffet meals? That's the way most resorts serve their meals. What are we going to do about disinfecting rooms? One guest leaves, another guest comes. Are they going to leave a room empty for a week? You should just find this stuff out. I don't know what the answer is. And at some point, if they say, oh, yes, this is what we do, you sort of got to take them at their word. So hopefully that all works out. What should you do? Very simple. Wash your hands all the time. You can't wash them too often. I carry hand sanitizer in the car. I got obviously stuff up here. If I go out of my apartment, even in the car, I hit the hand sanitizer. I go out of the car, come back in, hit the hand sanitizer again. May or may not be wearing the gloves. Come back in the apartment, wash my hands. Do the best you can. Again, from people I've talked to, this is what's going to transmit the disease, because you get it on there and you go like that, and now it's in your face, it's in your nose. What else can you do? From Carl's talk the other night, stay healthy and be aware of the public guidelines. Follow them. Take advantage of online programs and training, just hopefully like this that we're doing right now. A lot of us who speak frequently have suddenly realized through Zoom, hey, we can be talking all over the place. Tomorrow night, South Orange County Dive Club is having a talk from Dan Orr, who's the former president of Dan. He lives in Montana now. Normally, we couldn't do that. Carl Huggins, who was watching a few minutes ago, he gave a talk to New Orleans aquarium staff a little while back. Another friend of mine gave a talk to a dive club in Connecticut. So, you know, you're going to have access to people you don't maybe normally have access to. Don't believe everything that you read. Really consider the source. I saw a great meme that says, you know, good science is done by papers and research that is peer-reviewed, and conspiracy theories are fueled by videos. So bear that in mind. The internet is not always right. I saw it online, therefore it's probably not true. Talk to each other and trade best practices. You know, again, a lot of this we're all making up as we go along, and certainly those of us who teach or have shops and clubs and stuff like that, we're trading ideas, and you guys should do the same too. And, you know, feel free to email me or Carl out at the chamber. I'm sure if you got questions, you know, most of us in this industry are accessible, and we love talking about this stuff. So take advantage of that. Seek out the experts as best you can, and basically just use caution and common sense. You know, you got something up there to use. So I used to run an ad at the beginning of dive season, or major dive, summer dive season, that we always used to say, you know, the most important piece of gear you're going to take with you on the dive is your brain. So, you know, make sure you have that with you and use it. And same thing here when we're dealing with this. There is no perfect answer to all this stuff. It is sort of scary stuff, but just do the best you can and use common sense and use your head, and I think everything will probably be all right. And I made it under the 30 minutes. We should have about 11 minutes to go. I was going to say, in the time I haven't been able to see the list, so for all I know, in the time you all went away. But if anybody's got questions, everybody's muted. Just unmute yourself and let me know what you want to know. Oh, Alan's actually raising his hand. Yes, Mr. Blaustein. Unmute. You can unmute yourself, Alan. Do you want to do it? Wait a minute,
I got it. Okay, thanks. Thank you for that, Ken. That was a great presentation. I'm going to add a little hint from where I buy travel insurance.
Alan is a doctor, just FYI. Fire away.
Squaremouth.com also is a well-reviewed clearinghouse for travel insurance. But the question I have, and I think, Ken, you actually taught me this some time ago. When I go to a remote dive site, I look when they're doing the compressed air, where the intake valve is.
Good question.
I think you taught me that. And
yeah,
so
I read up actually, because the question was, suppose somebody coughs near the intake. Is that an issue? And actually, Dan addresses it in one of the things I was reading tonight, that, one of the things is heat. Oh, and we're getting right now our 10-minute warning. You should see a timer at the top of your screen. One of the things that you can use to kill viruses is heat. And according to Dan, if you coughed into the air intake, that they did a rough computation of the internal temperature as the air is being compressed. And it was something like, I remember, 250 degrees or whatever. And they said that would be enough to kill the virus in the compressor. Now, the difference is, so let's say, what's coming out of the compressor should be okay. The difference may be, though, that someone's filling the tank. I'm filling the tank. I cough onto my hand. I now go onto the valve. Guess what? I just transferred the virus. So that you might be able to get it that way. But in terms of specifically where the air intakes are, yeah, pay attention. But if we look at it in terms of, could someone cough into the air intake and is that a problem? Probably not, because of the heat of the air as it's compressed. Hopefully that's correct.
Ken?
Yeah, Jim.
Hi. Wonderful talk. Thank you so much. So I dive, I was diving twice a month on the local dive boats, and trip by trip, one by one has been canceled. There's even one this Sunday on the Magician, but I don't expect it to go. Are the dive boats having to adhere to the LA County, hey, everything's frozen through the end of July? Or you mentioned in your email that some people were going out, but I'm not aware of that.
There are a couple of boats that have been running quietly, and I don't mean by that illegally. I'll just say quietly. And as Carl can mention without naming names, certainly, because he and I talk, and I say, are there any boats? I said, yeah, we have 3 boats out on Isthmus Reef or something like that. So, yeah, some of those are running quietly. I would think that they're covered by the LA County stuff. I was talking with someone before we started this, and there was, and I don't know if this was just Santa Monica or not. What I had heard is they were issuing that there were at least 35 citations issued. She heard that there were 415 businesses visited, and 1/3 of them were issued citations. Now, I know I've talked to one boat captain who said the Coast Guard was aware that he was running some small trips, limited number of people. And when I say limited, it's 5 or 6 people, not like 15 or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And the Coast Guard didn't care. Now they're not, I don't think, the enforcement arm for this. So if the city, whatever the department is in the city or county, comes by and sees that you're running, they may have a different opinion. But I would think they're going to be affected. You probably need to talk to each one individually and say, are you running or not? And just from a financial standpoint, you can't run a dive boat with 10 people every week. You're going to lose too much money. So, I mean, it may be a short-term thing. I just don't know how that will go long-term, or the prices are going to go way up.
Yeah.
That's the other way. I can take half the number of people and I'm charging you twice as much.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Under 7 minutes to go. Any other? Bill, you got a question?
Hey, Ken.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
unmuted?
sir.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I read an article where they were saying the people who recovered from it, even that were asymptomatic, had permanent lung damage. Have you heard anything more about that?
Well, and Carl touched on this Wednesday night. So I think I don't know if it's one study or there have been 2 papers come out. I think one from Belgium, and I think they're both European. And it's based on 6 cases. So, that's certainly not enough evidence to say yes or no. But here's the bottom line. If this is going to do some lung damage, especially if it's very severe. If you have a mild case, it may not matter. But let's say it's severe. That, is the lung really going to regenerate anything? And my guess is, and we have another doctor, Tabby's on here, feel free to weigh in if I'm saying something wrong, but I'm guessing lung tissue doesn't exactly regenerate too quickly. So the concern is, like I said earlier, basically the way you describe this thing is it turns your lungs to cement. So let's say you lose, I don't know, a quarter lung function. If you go onto the Chamber website, Carl posted, and this is, you won't be able to see it, this is a copy of it from UC San Diego, and it's guidelines for evaluating divers post-COVID. And it's talking about things like, you can have them, how severe was the infection and what would you do? So let's just put it this way. Because this is what was really a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of divers. If I tell you, no matter how contagious you feel this is, no matter how well you feel you may recover from this, how likely you think you are to get it. If I tell you, look, there's a good chance if you get this, there's a 30% chance you may never be able to dive again. I think that gets your attention. So, I'd rather play it cautiously, because it's almost like anything else, lose that much lung function, and it's a hell of a time to go, damn, I'm sorry, my thoughts were wrong about this. It can prevent me from diving for the rest of my life. So I think it's something we got to look at closely, but it is definitely a concern. Anyone else have any other questions?
I'll contribute a piece to that.
Yeah.
There are things called pulmonary function tests.
Yeah.
I would recommend anybody who, even exposed to COVID, even symptomless, because you identified that 50% pulse ox level without symptoms.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been exposed to COVID should have pulmonary function tests.
Yeah.
And can repeat it again in the year. But if they come out abnormal, don't dive. It's your thing. Ken, you never, whatever that.
Never get hurt on a dive you don't make.
Exactly. There it is.
Absolutely.
That's right. The one I would love to quote. Yeah.
Absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right there. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because we got about 3.5 minutes to go. Because I was wondering too, when I've had, we used to anyhow get pulmonary function tests for aquarium diving. And mine would always come out to be roughly 150% of what would be predicted for someone my age, height, and everything else, which I just always attribute to the fact I dive so much. And so I really wondered if divers, because we use our lungs all the time, the same way a runner's going to have really good leg muscles, are our lungs going to be better equipped to deal with this, fight it off, recover from it? I don't know. But it's like, well, we use our lungs all the time. We should be fairly efficient, and will that benefit us if we happen to get unlucky enough to have a shot of this COVID hit us? So I don't know. Mr. Huggins?
Yeah, I just on chat put the link for the
good
CSD paper.
So if you guys hit your chat button, because once I end the meeting, I think that'll go away.
Right. And
we're at the 2.5 minute mark now. But Carl, that's the same link that's on the Facebook page, right? Page. Yeah. So
and it's really cool. And Dan Orr lives in Idaho.
Oh, I thought he was in Montana. Well, excuse me. And I thought my coupon was good at Del Taco today. I walked in with a free taco thing to Del Taco today. It turns out the damn thing was at Jack in the Box. It was and for $2.38. So what can I tell you? Let me give you a couple of good quick resources. As mentioned, this is the UC San Diego thing Carl is talking about. If you go on the Dan website, there's 2 things there. Dan's quick guide to disinfecting dive gear, and within that, there is a link to disinfection of scuba equipment and COVID-19, which is a little bit more extensive. And one of those also has a link to the EPA website. And I realize you can't see any, well, you certainly can't see when it goes away like that. The EPA website, this is the N list, or list N, disinfectants for use against SARS-CoV-2. So all of those, I think, are good references. And like I said, if you have any questions, email me directly. I'm sure you can email Carl at the Chamber, and Alan and Tabby will drag you guys into it as well if we need to. But thank you all for spending some time. Ken. Alan's actually applauding, So, oh, wait a minute, here, I'll do this. I think I can, oh no, where's the unmute? Mute all, unmute all. Okay, now you can all applaud and I can hear.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ken.
No, that was great. Thank you, guys. I think we'll do this with some regularity. We'll see how this goes. And Jim's
you,
still
guys.
clapping. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that too. Everybody have a good, safe night. Dive safely, and take care of yourself. Like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks so much for
Stay
tuning in.
safe.